I have oftentimes told the women that I work with that if they want to really understand what healthy masculine behavior is, that they should go ask a man. And today, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. I've brought my husband, Justin Keltner, otherwise known on YouTube as Entrepreneur Expat, to come on and share his perspective as a healthy masculine man about what is going on here in the world of relationships and dating. So thank you, my love, for coming on and saying, I want to come on and I want to talk about some of the things that women need to know about men.
Happy to be here and happy to be sharing this with your channel. This is going to be fun.
Before we get into it, my name is Amanda, and on this channel, we talk about how to manifest what you want in life without all the extra stress, chaos, and drama that most people are accustomed to. Lately, we've been talking a lot about relationship dynamics, feminine energy, masculine energy, and everything in between. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we have coming out on this channel. Thank you for reminding me. Please give it a like as well, because that helps us get it in front of more and more women. So many women have been reaching out in the emails or in the comments section saying, thank you so much for talking about these things. No one ever taught me these things. Now dating and relationships and marriage and men are making a lot more sense to me. So you can help us get this in front of more women by giving it a like. And as always, if we have extra trainings or resources to go deeper into the content of today, then I will make mention of those throughout the video. But let's get into it, because a lot of the women have been asking some very juicy questions, and I've been noticing some interesting things in the comment section that when I pointed it out to you, you were like, hey, Amanda, I would love to come on and talk to the ladies that you're talking to and just kind of share it from a man's perspective. And I'm so grateful to you that anytime something like that happens, and this is a very healthy masculine behavior, you immediately want to jump in and you want to help, and you want to help solve problems and give mentorship. And you're not just doing this here, you also do it on your own YouTube channel and with
Mm-hmm.
your own businesses. So, in case people don't know, I know some of you already do. You already follow him on YouTube. But for those who don't know who you are, can you just kind of give like a quick little brief synopsis? Because I think it gives a very interesting global perspective to the conversation that we're going to be having today.
Absolutely. So, most recently, I'm most known as the Entrepreneur Expat. And in that business, we help a lot of people from all over the Western world, the US, Canada, and other countries, move to places like Mexico, move to places like Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, get residencies, get second citizenship. So we're really helping people that are kind of fed up with what they're doing right now in their home country, with what's going on politically, with what's going on economically, and they're looking for better opportunities. And then I have also a background for over 15 years in technology and systems, as well as in marketing and business training.
If any of you have had a tech issue with the membership portal, Justin is the
That would
one
be
making
me.
making sure it gets fixed, and it gets fixed very quickly. Our joke in our relationship, which is a really great metaphor for masculine and feminine energy, is that I am the water, I am flowy, I am creative, maybe a little erratic sometimes, or a little bit not as organized, and you're the cup. So you're the one that gives the containment and the structure, which I think is a really great
Mm-hmm.
place to start, because giving that containment and structure is healthy masculine energy. So, can you speak a little bit to that? Because I just see you doing it in every area of your life.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good analogy, right? You're the water, you're flowy, you're just sort of connecting with different energies, and it sounds a little woo-woo, but it's actually not. It's just kind of the nature of how you are and the nature of feminine in general. And what I do a lot of, I guess, just naturally is a lot of that containment. So you might come up with a really brilliant idea, like, hey, people are asking us about what's going on with expat stuff. Let's start a channel, or hey, let's start leaning more into products, or hey, let's focus on this group or this audience, because you have more of those sort of divine downloads, right? You're starting to just get energetically feel into things and connect and be really intuitive. You're an extremely intuitive woman. And women overall tend to be more on that intuitive, energetic side than men. But you're
Connected women are.
exactly
Yeah.
connected women, but you particularly are very well connected inside and with your spiritual connections and everything else, which I think increases your intuition. And then I think of myself as like the same way that I'm a systems person in business, kind of the systems person here. Amanda lovingly calls me her tech daddy. But that's part of that containment. So you'll go and be like, okay, well, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and sometimes maybe you move fast and break things, and then I create the structure behind all of that, so that when somebody does buy on the membership site, they actually get the stuff that you created, or making sure we're following up, or we've got the content, and you're helping a lot on even on my channel with the content ideas and with some of the strategy and like big picture, and then I'm obviously recording and then doing a lot of the optimization, and then looking at it and saying, okay, how do we sort of 10x this, like how do we take everything to the next level? We've got the content, we're getting eyeballs, we're getting attention. How do we then start running ads and build the pipeline to be even more functional and more effective and all these other things?
So it's a very collaborative relationship,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is really important because we've had this conversation on both our channels, me with Shaman Patrick, and then you with some of your clients that you were just interviewing for Entrepreneur Expat, that you helped them with their residency here in Mexico. And one of the things that has come up over and over and over again is that couples, once they're together, we'll talk about dating in a little while, but once you're together and you're married and you're like lifing together, you really need to learn how to collaborate in that way. And sometimes that takes a little while to figure out. So, do you have any tips for the married couples who are watching this? And you're
Mm-hmm.
like, wait a minute, we're just constantly fighting all the time. Like, we run businesses together, or I can't get my husband to be ambitious, or we can't get on the same page. That's the big one. Do you have any tips in that regard for the women and also the men? We do have some
Yeah.
men who watch.
I think a lot of it is understanding what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're working on that's bigger than you. I'll pull from a second. I'll pull in a second from more of a spiritual angle on this, but just practically speaking, then this is why the divorce rate is so much lower with couples that are running businesses together, for example, compared to like everybody else or maybe the general population, because they're working towards a common goal. So if you're running a business with your spouse, like you're already ahead of most people in terms of the likelihood of that marriage working out. But in terms of the collaboration, when you are working on projects together, I think it's about just understanding the bigger picture. That's number one, like understanding what your larger goals are that are pulling you towards maybe putting aside some of your differences or putting aside some of your feelings. I know with us, I mean, it's not perfect. Like sometimes we step on each other's toes. Sometimes I might say something where I'm like, "Hey, we should change the way that we're doing this thing in business," but you might take it a little bit more critically, and we've both been getting better at that, or vice versa, right?
That is something of the feminine. That is one of our
Yeah,
shadow sides, is that we'll take stuff as criticism. And then one of the shadow sides of men that they need to learn about women is how to express in a way where
where they don't take it critically.
where the
Yeah,
woman's not going to feel criticized. Yeah,
that's true,
yeah,
and it's
that's
something I'm working on too.
yeah.
So
That is one of the things we talk a lot about on this channel. We haven't really done the reverse, but we've talked a lot about how women can speak to men to inspire them and get the message across. But we haven't done much of the reverse yet, because
yeah,
men also need to learn how women take in information and the psychology of women and how all that
yeah, and
works.
I think we should definitely go into that. One thing I'll just finish with on that initial topic though is that from if you are spiritual, and we're not religious, but we study spirituality and energy and shamanism and plant medicine and homeopathy and so many other things, and there's always this through line that the way, I mean, even if you just take it from like a purely pragmatic standpoint, if you are connected with something, and they have this in the 12-step programs and everything else as well, if you are connected with something that's greater than yourself, then you're a lot more likely to actually achieve your goals and to succeed, right? And do it in a way where you're not burning yourself out. So, from a spiritual standpoint, you take God or universe as this sort of not just motivation, but something that you're allowing to flow through you as you're creating. And also, you realize that it's not just about you. Like, what are you actually here to do? What's really your purpose on this planet? Because it's really easy to get caught up in the day to day of, oh, like I got to do 4 sales calls today, and I don't know where my next client's going to come from.
Or
Like,
managing a household, or managing the
or
kids,
managing
or
the house, or any of that. Like, you're stressed about work, you're stressed about finances, you're stressed about clients, or a project's not going the right way, or whatever. And it's easy to take that out on yourself, and then of course on your spouse as well. But when you have something greater and you're like, this is all part of a much bigger plan, then it it becomes much less important. You attribute a lot less importance to those little things on the human level that don't seem to be going well, and you might even laugh at them at some point and say, "Wow, that's really silly," or laugh at either the thing or the situation, or better, laugh at yourself. It's good to just be able to laugh at yourself and not take yourself seriously. But when you realize that there's something much bigger out there than just you, or even than just your relationship, that's why, and your mom said this rightly so. It's like you put God first, and then your relationship, right? But God or universe or whatever it is, that comes first, and then the human aspect of how you relate, and then the business or the friends or anything
the
else,
kids,
right?
all
And
that
a lot
stuff.
of couples that I've seen as well, when they have a family, when they have kids, they make the mistake of saying, okay, my kids are number one, I have to put them before everything else. It's like, no, you need to put yourself first, and then your kids, because it's like the oxygen masks on the airplane. You have to put yours on first. You have to make sure that you're actually okay first, because if you don't, how on earth are you going to be responsible in making sure that other people are okay?
Yeah, and there's this interesting thing that happens that we now know a lot of times when couples only put their kids first, and they've made their whole life their kids. Then what happens? The kids grow up, they go to college, they leave the house. Maybe not as quickly in some of the countries that we hang out in, but at
Mm-hmm.
least in the Western world, they leave the house at a pretty young age, and then you like a lot of couples are finding themselves not even knowing what to talk about
Mm-hmm.
when their kids
And
are
their marriage
adults and
just
out of,
falls
and the
apart.
marriage falls apart because they made their whole marriage their kids, and now the kids are not in the house.
And that goes back to like why maybe running a business, or at least having projects with your spouse, is so important, is because you want to have something in common. If you only get into a relationship for good sex and for the
Hi.
chemicals,
Yeah, the
the brain
romance.
chemicals that come from that, your relationship isn't going to last very long, or it's going to be very tumultuous. And I would say, because I know there's a lot of single women and even some single men watching this, the way that you are able to get into a relationship and later even a marriage where you have things in common is you find things that you have in common in the first place as you're dating, and that's the filter. It's not the physical attributes necessarily. It's not, am I feeling emotionally charged around this person all the time. It's, which by the way, also actually a lot of that comes from a place of toxicity, not from a place of genuine, like, the healthy, I guess, love, right? It
Yeah,
comes from a toxic place when all you're feeling is that emotion, that energy, that charge, that
the
that
ups and the
that fire.
downs. Yeah.
Exactly. That comes from a very toxic place, and it tends to come from a place where your attachment styles are like opposites, right? That's not healthy.
Or trauma.
Right, or trauma, exactly.
Yeah.
But trauma usually causes those issues with attachment styles. But that's how we're taught to love. Instead of that, why don't you actually go and join a club doing something you like to do? In my case, maybe my hobbies are very, very techy, so perhaps I don't have as, if we weren't married, like if I was out there and single again, maybe I wouldn't have as much of a dating pool if I went just around those. Like, I like servers, I like technology, I like, things like that. But, hey, get into something that maybe at some point was really interesting to you, even if it's not like your favorite thing in the world. But I enjoy, let's say, okay, you like gardening, you like animals, you can go and volunteer at an animal shelter, things like that, where you can find somebody that's got those common interests, or at the very least, the common values.
Yeah. There's so many places I want to go with this because you mentioned such good stuff here. So in the High Value Woman Transformation Program, I teach them in one of the modules how to expand their social circles so they can find high value men. And that's literally one of the things that I said. I'm like, what are your hobbies, girl? Like, what are you doing? Because some people literally just like go to work, go home, repeat, go to work, go home, repeat. There's no life outside of that. And I know that if you're watching this from the United States or Canada or parts of Western Europe or Australia right now, things are just a little bit intense. where people, and we can get
Yeah.
into what's going on there as well, because you have this really interesting global perspective that I'd like to talk about as well, because we are getting people from all over the world commenting. But that's one of the things I talk about. I'm like, what do you like to do? So, for example, in our case, we met through a business group, through a
Hmm.
networking group for 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs. We both liked business. You had to pay to get into that group,
Yeah.
which meant that there was a higher caliber of person. I don't know any other way of saying it.
That's what I would say. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there's a higher barrier to entry.
yeah,
So when you just do stuff that's free or that it might apply to anyone, there's no filter,
yeah,
right? But when you're doing something, and it's the same thing with business. When you're networking, why would you go to a free chamber of commerce event? Figure out how you can, even if you don't necessarily pay, but figure out how you can get invited to a party that's really difficult to get into for business people. A party or an event, or like you went to Grant Cardone's things on a yacht. I think some you got invited to, or some you maybe bought a program and you were able to get to that, and you got to people that were like, literally, some of the people on that boat were rebuilding Haiti,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
some of the
Some
women
of
that
them
you
were
connected
selling
with there.
jets. Yeah,
Exactly. So
yeah.
so there, you want to create filters, because otherwise you're going to spend your entire life using your own filtering system instead of just borrowing other people's filters.
Well, to your point, I also mentioned that in the program where I'm like, hey, if you want to go find like high value, ambitious men who want to provide. I mean, when I went to Grant Cardone's events, and say what you want about the guy, I know that, it's a love or hate relationship with Grant Cardone. He's a very polarizing figure.
Hmm.
But I was in Miami. I knew a lot of people who worked for him. I went to a lot of those events, and I remember having an employee back in my previous business before you came into the picture, and we would go to those events, and that's where I started learning a lot about kind of like healthy masculine behavior, was actually going to those events full of high performing businessmen. Because when I would ask them like, hey, and I would come from a place of curiosity, which I encourage all women to do. Like when you're approaching men, come from and this whole like dating thing and polarity, and approach it from a place of curiosity. I spent
Hmm.
6 or 7 years before I met you in those circles, just asking the men, like, hey, why do you do what you do, by the way? And do you know what they would tell me?
Why?
I'm doing this for my wife and kids, or I'm doing this for my future wife and kids. And I remember having an employee, and she went to the event. She goes, why are all the men here so hot? Like, how do I get one of these?
Mm.
Right? Because there was this energy. Oh, hi, Mia. There was this energy of these men want to provide. These men are ambitious. These men are fighting for something. And then, do you want to know what else those men would tell me? And I know you used to have an issue with this in your past relationships. They said one of their biggest problems in relationships was the fact that they were either married to or dating a woman who would complain about how ambitious they are and how hard they work.
The irony there, it's like, you girl, you literally are looking for a man who's ambitious, who's hardworking, who's going to take care of you, who's going to be able to help you raise a family, but then you complain when he does the activities that make that happen. Make
They
it make
they
sense.
were so confused because they'd be like, why is she so upset? I'm building this for her.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for her. I'm doing it for the kids.
And I
Uh,
did have a problem with that,
yeah,
with past relationships, where they wouldn't understand why I was always traveling, why I was going to events, why I was going to conferences, why I was doing personal development. They weren't about it. And then on top of that, like, oh, you need to spend more time with me, and I need your attention, and all this stuff.
and
You're never really like that.
well, because I understand what it takes to run businesses,
Yeah.
um, and I also understand that part of the masculine, and especially high achieving, high performing men. Yeah, ladies, they work a lot, but they're doing it for you.
I'm working 10, 12 hours a day sometimes. I mean, you've seen me. The last week, for example, we were, for any of you guys who are in tech, we got approved for names IPv4 and 6 namespace. So we've got our own, basically, real estate on the internet, essentially, but at a very high level. And so I was learning how to do these BGP protocols and configure our routers and set up stuff so that when we go to Miami in a couple months here, and we're about to put our servers in a data center there, because we have a lot of people going to our sites, we have a lot of hosting clients, whatever. How long was I obsessed with that for? I think probably 3-4 days, just nonstop. I mean, I basically didn't
Yeah.
sleep. I was talking to ChatGPT at night under the covers,
Yeah,
and I was asking it questions and trying to figure things out, and I was at my computer and I was up till 3
and
a.m.
then on top of that, you're filming content. You've been on interviews for your channel recently. You were just booking our plane tickets for a not real estate, a research and development trip to Albania. You were figuring all the
And I
logistics
got a
out.
hell of a deal too.
You did, right? You were figuring all that stuff out. And that also is a part of the masculine, is like this planning and thinking toward the future and figuring out the logistics and all those kinds of things. A lot of women, and I'd like to hear your perspective on this, complain to me that it's like opposite
Yeah,
in their marriages. Like they're the ones who have to resolve everything and the guy's not
that's weird. It's
resolving
really
too
weird.
much.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I understand where you're coming from because you've mentioned this before, but maybe for the benefit of the audience and also to give me even more context about where you want to go with that, like, what do you mean? What's an example of that? Because I'm sure a lot of the people watching can relate, although I think maybe if you give some specific examples,
Mm-hmm.
that'll help me as well.
Yeah, of course. I think a typical example is the woman who is splitting half the bills with a man, which I know you have thoughts on.
Hmm.
um, it's a woman who's doing that. She's working her butt off at a job. She's managing the household. She's managing most of the kids. I mean, we saw it, right? When we did a lot of the business consulting stuff and groups that we used to run before
Yep.
a lot of the stuff that you do now when you were doing business consulting. I mean, we literally saw it. There were women who would show up on the calls and suddenly they would have some sort of like physical sickness or breakout or some autoimmune thing start coming up. And when we started asking questions, we would come to find out she's paying all the bills, she's managing the kids, husband perhaps was going to school, quit, now isn't doing much of anything. And then we're like, well, of course your body's freaking out,
Yeah.
being under all of that amount of stress. So, I mean, that would be an example.
So I will preface it with this, especially in the West right now, in the U.S. and in Canada and Australia and the U.K. and a lot of countries where like cost of living and things are getting outrageous. Which, by the way, if you want to get out of those places, talk to us because we can help you with that too, through our Entrepreneur Expat brand. But in places like that where cost of living is just absolutely out of control, you sometimes need to have two adults in a family working full time to be able to make things work. I'm not even going to say that it's not unreasonable that both people are working. It's very difficult to raise a family right now on one income unless your husband's rich or like very very successful in business. It's difficult. Like it's not like it was 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. Here's the real issue, and this is I think the where it gets to the core of what's wrong is that from, well, men, I'll start with that perspective. It doesn't make sense for a man to say, you need to work, but you also need to raise the kids. And you need to make sure that the house is clean because you may or may not be paying somebody to do that. Even here, I mean, we're both kind of doing our own thing. I'm bringing in the majority of the money. I'm paying the bills. I'm handling all the finances. But you've got a business as well. You love doing what you're doing. You're also bringing in some money. And I wouldn't have it any other way because you love to do your thing, right?
I'm glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
there's a lot of women who feel like
But I'm not asking you to clean. I'm not asking you to take care of all those things. We don't have kids. Like that's also very different. And also I'm
yeah.
not asking you to work. You are just choosing to work because you love what you're doing and it's more of a vocation for you. The issue is when they're asking their wives to do all that plus more. That's not balanced,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up actually, because I know, and we'll get into what the women are saying, but I've noticed that one of the fears that women have when you talk about masculine energy, feminine energy, letting a man be a provider, we'll get more into that, is
Hmm.
that they feel like they're going to be like Susie Homemaker back in the kitchen, barefoot and pregnant, right? And I'm like, actually, no, there's lots of different ways of doing this. So, for example, like you said, like you don't ask me to pay bills, you take on all the responsibility of that. You like taking on the responsibility of that, which we'll get to,
Hmm.
because most men do, ladies. But in addition to that, it's something that I enjoy doing. And then at the same time, it's not like, hey, you have to go, clean the house and cook every meal. We have help that comes
Yeah.
twice a week
Which we
because
can do in Mexico, and it
we can do
doesn't
that in
cost a lot of
Mexico.
money. In the US, that would be thousands of dollars a month,
Yeah.
which still would be worth it, but here it's a lot more accessible.
But what's the energy behind that? Because in my mind, the way that I see it is, from a logical perspective, a part of it is definitely like, hey, Amanda has skills that can either help me amplify my life and my business, or she has skills where she can go do some creative project that she loves to do. And you've seen it happen where I have an idea and then, like, in a week, it's making money.
It's not even about the fact that does it make money or does it not make money. It's the fact that I think number one that's really important that this goes back to a lot of energetic and this goes back to a lot of energetics and it's not obvious on the surface, right? But women, because they're intuitive, they're the ones that are actually inspiring their men to greatness. That's one of those things that's like just so undervalued because men don't understand a lot of the time that having a woman by their side not only increases their value in society. You look at any president except maybe one or two, they were all married,
Yep.
right? Even Trump and Melania, although who knows if there's anything between them anymore. I don't know. Or if it's, for show or whatever. But they're all married. It increases your status in society. But much more importantly, having a woman by your side who's connected to herself, who's intuitive, who's in touch with her feminine nature actually helps you. She's bringing you ideas. She's a lot of the time connecting you to people because women are the ones that are really good connectors. She's doing all these things that maybe aren't necessarily like, oh, go out and it's just weird. It's a very low value thing to be like, oh, you need to help pay rent. So go out and get a $50,000 job working. It's like, no, you're literally are talking to like the queen of your house, who's this energetic powerhouse who can inspire you to greatness, who can help you make multiple times more money. And you have, by the way. I mean,
Speak more to that because I
yeah.
think number one, I don't think women understand that about themselves, is what I've noticed. Like they don't understand the power that they have in feminine energy to do that for a man. Or there's a distortion that happens that they get with a man who has shown no signs of being able to be successful and is like has a carrot stick of a dream, and then she's like bankrolling the whole thing. That's a distortion, right? But it's either like women don't understand that, or they get into the distortion
Mhm.
version of it, which is let me bankroll this man and support him while he tries to chase a rap career or something, or goes back to school, or that usually doesn't end well
Mhm.
for the women. That's not what we're talking about. Or I find that a lot of men don't understand that about women and about themselves. So can you kind of give, like, for example, give concrete examples on how I haven't like told you what to do necessarily, like you need to go make more money, which is like what most women will do with their men, which by the way does not work. Hi Daisy. But instead inspired you, and then that's turned into more success and more money for you, because I think both parties don't understand the power of a symbiotic relationship. And what's interesting is that most religions and spiritual traditions talk about this.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
You can't have yin without yang. You can't have dark without light. There's different qualities that make men men, that make women women. There are different things that each do in a relationship that are their strengths. So why would you want to play to your weaknesses?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's what women are doing in a big sense when they're like, I want to. It's not that you shouldn't have your career. That's not the point. The point is you're better at a lot of those things that are in a relationship what people might consider the soft skills or
Or the
the
intangible.
intangible. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's that intangible. But it benefits a man. You bring the inspiration to the table. You bring a lot of the connection or the connectedness. You've helped me get back in touch with my spirituality, which has helped a ton. You do magic and witchy stuff. Like we have what is that? Some kind of incense going. I don't even know what the hell the flavors or the scents or whatever are or what they do. But I know they work because every time you light a candle, we end up landing a $15,000 deal. It sounds ridiculous, but like I'm a numbers guy, I'm a data guy. Even the astrology and things like that, you've sold me on a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
because every time we travel or we try to do something complicated with business or with technology during Mercury retrograde, it's always gone poorly.
I
But I wouldn't have
convinced you.
even known. You have, yeah. We decided to push back our trip to Albania because we were looking at the dates and we're like, nah, let's do it a couple weeks later
Because it's
instead.
always a disaster when we
Yeah,
travel
it's a
during Mercury
disaster. Even
retrograde.
FedEx has it marked on the calendar, right?
Yeah, I knew some FedEx employees who had it marked on the calendar.
Yeah, so you bring all that intangible, but it's wisdom. And it's not just wisdom necessarily from what you learn. We're going to get a little woo-woo here, but what you learn in this life and what you have just mentally access to, what you've studied, it's also the intangible in terms of the energy that you channel in the relationship. That even on paper, and again, I'm an analytical guy. I used to be a software engineer. I'm very into the data and the numbers and the structure and the systems. And it's proven very, very effective. All the stuff that you've done, which I didn't even know was something that was like part of a woman's role in a relationship, because I don't think I've had that level of that type of contribution before. But it's worth a lot more to me for you to be channeling the energy and the intention and even resting, because when you rest you get some of your best ideas.
Yeah.
And they might bring in money through your channel, they might help me bring in money through my channel, they might just help me get aligned with things and make more money because of that, but they're super valuable.
Yeah. Why do you think most people don't see that? Like, for example, and let's get into like you helped me with a video on this channel about the 4 types of men women should not date.
Hmm.
You're the one who helped me with that channel because you have a history where, and I say this as a message of hope for the women, right? You have a history where you did not always think this way.
Hmm.
Like by the time you met me, you kind of were already thinking this way. Like you'd already come to a lot of conclusions and done a lot of healing and inner work around masculinity and stuff like that, but you did not always think this way. So, why do you think it's difficult for men these days, particularly in the Western world, to comprehend this? Because you're Ukrainian on one side,
Hmm.
you're Eastern European, and I'm Latin American. You know, and in those parts of the world, although they're not perfect, there's no perfect country, there's no perfect part of the world. It doesn't exist. We can tell you from having lived in multiple countries and studying multiple countries
Yeah.
because of your work on Entrepreneur Expat. But it's like a totally different way of viewing relationships and family and spirituality and all that stuff than perhaps what we're seeing now in the United States, in Canada, in Australia, in Western Europe, which, by the way, is where we get the most comments from on this channel. And then, interestingly enough, on your channel, you hear from men from those countries who are saying they can't find feminine women. So
Yeah.
we have the women on my channel on those countries saying they can't find masculine men, and the men on your channel from those countries saying they can't find feminine women. Help me move to another country. So, like, what do you think is going on here? Why is everybody so confused?
I think there's a lot of parts to it, but number one is that the society in the West right now is kind of collapsing. And that's having a really, really big toll on dating. Because the things that women want, for instance, are very different than the things that they're told by society that they want or that they should want. And that in and of itself is a recipe for disaster. And then you take something like the red pill movement and pickup, and I was involved in that for
We'll
a
get into
while.
that. We'll get
But
into
you
it.
take things like that, they're a response to things like the later waves of feminism, telling women that they want something that biologically, psychologically, like everything else, even societally, are not what they really want and are not even in their best interest
That's the
because it went
part
too far.
that's the part
Yeah.
that's crazy is whatever wave of feminism we're on right now, and this is what I tell women, are is not actually in the interest of women.
No, and
And
it's not really feminism.
most women go into dating situations these days negotiating against themselves.
Yeah.
I'm like, imagine starting a relationship where you start splitting the bills 50-50 from the beginning, and then you end up marrying the guy, and now you're exhausted. Well, girl, you set the precedent. You
Yeah.
negotiated against yourself in the name of equality.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then on the flip side with men, what you have is like the red pill stuff being They call it when I studied a lot of dating and psychology concepts, they call it this thing the polar opposing insecurity compensation, the POIC, right? That's when you have a pendulum, and the pendulum has swung so far to the other side from their reaction to feminism and their reaction to a lot of how Me Too and things like that have just gone too far, especially in the West. And then that causes them to want to use women for sex, to want to not have to have commitment, to want to just get whatever it is that they want short term.
It's damaging for
It's
everyone.
damaging, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's because long term it's almost like not worth it to these men anymore to really pursue women and try to have a relationship, because what's the benefit? They're being accused of things that they didn't do in a lot of cases. The men are. They're also being seen. I mean, even just now, it's like there's maybe we'll put this ad up that I saw if I can find it, but there was like an ad on the subway in London that said that looking at somebody with a sexual intent is now harassment and it's illegal and that you need to report it to the police. I'm like, okay, so we're not allowed to approach a woman on the street or in a coffee shop because that's assault somehow now.
Mhm.
We're not allowed to look at somebody on public transport, which, by the way, the West has gone too far in terms of all that, and free speech and so many other areas, but I won't go down that rabbit hole.
You can follow Entrepreneur
Yeah, we
Expat for
talk
all
about that
that.
a little bit there.
Yeah.
But the issue is that it's going so far where like men are afraid to make any move and to have any semblance of masculinity that they show, because they're going to be reprimanded or worse, locked away.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one of the reasons that you're
Or
seeing these women complain about having men that don't approach them anymore, that
yeah.
aren't masculine.
What do you think is different being Eastern Europe about Eastern European culture in this regard? Because, for example, I saw an Eastern European woman talk about this the other day,
Hmm.
and she was saying, in Eastern Europe, and I showed you the viral TikTok about asking the American men versus the Russian men about whether or not they go 50-50 in relationships, and you started.
Oh God, there's another one where it's like where she says, "Oh, I can't pay my half
I
of the
can't
rent
pay the
anymore."
mortgage, right? But I showed you these TikToks, and the one with the American men versus the Russian men, you chuckled, being Ukrainian and also have
Yeah.
Russian ancestry. So what is different between the Eastern European mindset, for example, and the Western mindset, where they seem to be having a relationship crisis? Because I will tell you one thing I've noticed from being married to an Eastern European and learning more about the culture and things like that. Number one, not that different than Latin America in terms of like family,
Hmm.
really, really important structure. And they take that very seriously in Eastern European cultures. But number two, I noticed that the women have a respect for masculinity, and then the masculine in turn respect
Exactly.
the feminine.
In Eastern Europe, you do not have this pussy behavior of man saying, woman pay 50-50 and she raise kids and she clean house. And what are you talking about? Man provide, man go to work, man go kill bear if man need to kill bear. That is what we're doing. That is what we're here to do.
And the women appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas when you ask the American guys on that TikTok if the women should go 50-50, I mean, it sounded like they were lacking testosterone because they
They
were
are.
like,
There's a lot of very, very feminized men, and a lot of what I saw in that red pill community, unfortunately, was very feminized men that also came from a lot of trauma, like I did in my childhood, and lack of a strong father figure, and they're both retaliating against what society is doing and what they feel that women are doing to them, and also
they're scared of saying the wrong
they're
thing. So
scared.
they're like,
Yeah,
whatever she wants,
yeah, exactly.
which to
So
women is
well,
like
actually,
unsexy.
and you either like with the red pill or with other things, you either go one way, which is these men become very, very feminized, and now women don't find them attractive, but yet somehow the women end up getting in relationships where they're paying all their bills because they don't value themselves enough. The women don't. And then on the flip side, you have those men that are basically switching from a very anxious attachment style, right, where maybe they didn't get enough love, they didn't get enough attention, especially from their mother, and so they're like anxious, and they're the ones who are like constantly texting a girl or like asking her after the date, like how basically how it went, and like just all these like very weird supplicative behaviors. So they go from that extreme, or they're not even getting dates at all, and they don't know how to talk to a girl. I mean, I was like that in high school. I didn't really date women at all until like after high school. So they go from that to then being these like pickup artist types that just want to have this massive harem and keep everybody sort of on a string, but they're not really setting proper boundaries. They're using manipulation a lot of the time emotionally, and they're not typically having healthy relationships. And I'm not going to say that like not having a monogamous relationship is bad, right? Do whatever you want. I'm not criticizing that or saying anything about that, although I don't know if it's as effective. It's definitely not effective for family and things like that. But the way that people are going about it is unhealthy. It's toxic. It's manipulative. And so you're going from someone who was, it's essentially like going from someone who was a victim, or at least internally in your own mind, you were a victim, all the way to now you're the
The
oppressor.
predator.
You're the
Yeah.
oppressor. You're the predator, which we can argue happens a lot in society and in the world, right?
Yeah. What are some of the ways that unhealthy men manipulate women? Because what I find from the women is there's a lot of confusion as to what healthy behavior is versus what it's not. And interesting point, a lot of the things in the Western world that are demonized in men end up being like healthy, normal,
Mm-hmm.
psychologically healthy male behaviors. Like we saw a thing about mansplaining the other day from Adam Lane Smith, and I was like, I have never felt mansplained in my life, but I would see a lot of other women complaining about it. But it's because I understood that men like to solve problems and fix things and mentor the people around them. It's one of
Yeah.
the ways in which they give. Most women don't know that, so they think every man is mansplaining
Yeah, I
to
mean,
them.
so men definitely do have work in a lot of areas, as I did certainly in communication and in saying things in a way where you're talking a woman's language. That's something that sometimes isn't easy to learn because you have a worldview and an understanding that may be very, very different, and that's okay. But men can practice that, sure. So a component of that definitely is that they need to have a better understanding and just have female friends, because when they have female friends they're going to get more of that context and understand how women think and what their needs and desires and everything else are,
And vice versa.
and vice versa,
Yeah.
100%, which is part of what you do in your courses and everything else, which is amazing because women need this and men need this, and maybe there's more speaking to men that I get to do. In fact, we're working on another brand there, so we'll probably put the details down below this video when we do create some of those content pieces. But back to your question of what is it that kind of does that? It's the fact that, so yes, there's that communication discrepancy, but more of it again is what it's society saying, hey, this thing is bad. You shouldn't let a man walk you through this thing step by step,
Open your
because
door, pay your bills.
well, that too, that's a,
Yeah.
that's a whole other issue. But even on the concept of what you were saying with
Look at you.
mansplaining, it's like, do you want an answer or not?
Yeah.
Can some men be condescending? Can some men purposefully be controlling? Yes, but that's not most men.
Yeah.
Most men are just genuinely trying to be helpful. So it's giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I think that a lot of the stuff that's coming down from society and from what other people are telling you, number one, it's not coming from healthy people. Number two, it's probably coming from people that have a vested interest in manipulating you.
Correct. So let's get into the ones that have a vested interest in manipulating you. Because when you were very young, in your time it was called pickup, now it's
Hmm.
called red pill. You got into that red pill space, and you've seen the comments. Well, they'll start arguing with me in the comment section, and
Oh,
you're
it's
like,
crazy.
what kind of a grown man argues with a woman? Like, you're just so confused at the comments that I get from the red pill
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
I won't enter an elevator with a female and stuff like that. Um, they've gone way off the deep end, the
Hmm.
ones that are commenting that. But to your point, there are men out here who will manipulate women, and I'll tell you the types of women they manipulate, and then you can tell them how they do the manipulation.
Yeah.
So the type of woman number one that gets manipulated is what I call the wounded maiden, right? So she's like
Hmm.
the victim. She's like the one we see in the novelas, right? Right. This just very toxic woman who makes everyone's life a living hell and a disaster. And these red pill guys think every woman is that. And that's where a lot of the philosophy comes from, because maybe their mom was like that and they
Yeah.
saw their mom destroy their dad. So I understand
Been there.
in order to have compassion.
I can relate.
The other
Yeah.
type of woman that they look for is, and that woman's also very insecure.
Hmm.
So they will target that woman. The other type of woman that they target, I've noticed, is the next level up, which is the awakening warrior, is what I call her, which she is starting to take a lot of responsibility for her own life. She's no longer in that victim consciousness, but she goes way into hyper independence.
Hmm.
And she's still in this kind of like in between stage where she perhaps hasn't, she's learning how to take care of herself, which is great. Because it won't put her in desperate situations like the victim, but she usually gets targeted as well because she still has insecurities. And I noticed that she'll get targeted by men, like the other TikTok that I showed you about a homeless man teaching other homeless men on TikTok how to find a woman that'll pay all their bills for
Yeah.
6 months. And they're usually like working in HR, they're usually six-figure earners, like they're usually have own a house, like they're usually doing well for themselves. And they'll target these women. I remember my mom telling me that one time, um, where she's like, yeah, I'm not, I mean, she obviously changed this, but she goes, I wouldn't buy you a house because men will target you. Like bad
Because you
men
have
will,
something. Yeah.
because you have something. So those are the types of women I've noticed, right? It's like those first two stages of what I call the divine feminine stages, they will get targeted by unhealthy men. I want to hear from you since you were on the inside,
Hmm.
right? Again, you got over this way before you met me, and then we can talk about how men can get out of it because I do feel like there's more men waking up from the red pill stuff. How do these men manipulate women? Am I right in my assessment of who they target?
No, I mean I think it's all of them.
Okay.
I think it's really all of them at different levels, but for most of what I've seen in that pickup space, and some of it isn't even like conscious manipulation. You just sort of think that, hey, it depends on the level, right? When I started to get to a level of uncomfortability where I'm like, oh, maybe I'm actually not being authentic. Maybe I'm being manipulative here. That's when I would usually like not do that because I had a little bit better defined moral compass and I wasn't perfect and I'm sure I hurt a lot of people's feelings through the process because whether or not you're doing something consciously, that doesn't actually change how it works. And I think that a lot of these men, I'm not going to say that they're innocent, but they're coming at it from a place of not necessarily trying to screw women over or purposefully control or manipulate them. They're coming at it almost from a place of this is just how things are, so this is how you have to play the game. So I don't think it's necessarily that they're even 100% of the time being bad or evil, but there is a small percentage, and maybe that's 5%, maybe that's 10%. And this isn't necessarily even just people in the pickup space. This is also people in the kind of adjacent space where they just like don't care at all for anyone's feeling. That's like the sort of sociopath level where they don't care at all for anybody's feelings. They only care about their feelings. They don't care how many people they have to hurt in order to get what they want, whether that's love, whether that's a relationship, whether that's sex, whether that's having a harem of women. But I will say though that that's a very small percentage. But that tends to be what the leaders of a lot of those groups are either promoting or the place that they're coming from, or they're coming from a place where they're so kind of delusioned by the entire game or by themselves or by their own ego that they can't actually see that they're being manipulative or cruel or whatever it is. That's even again in the leadership and the people that are speaking most in those spaces. I think most of them are not trying to lead men astray that standpoint where they're just trying to hurt them or hurt the women or both. But there's a couple percent for sure where it's you know no, we don't care what the women's experience is at all,
Mm-hmm.
and they're actually manipulating men to get them to give them money and to boost them up and build their own egos
Mm-hmm.
and power, respect, whatever it is. They're more in it because they want to either build a business or like put themselves almost to the point of like being a demigod. That's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of what I've seen. So it's not, I mean, guys, it's really not like, hey, these guys, all of them are just in it because they just want to. They're just, I think, misinformed. They're
Don't
coming
date
from their
them
own.
though.
No, no, no,
They're
no.
not ready to
Don't
date.
date them. But
Yeah.
realize that it's not just because they really want to cause damage to you. It's because they're probably hurt themselves, They're dealing with their own insecurities, and they didn't have a strong father figure to show them how to talk to women. And they think that the only way, for example, that they can get a woman to have a relationship with them is that they have sex quickly with that woman.
Right.
Otherwise, they're going to be seen as a loser.
Which is
eh,
so damaging.
Which, yeah, but that's like a very big tenet is what they say
Yeah.
is you have to, sleep with this woman quickly. Otherwise, they're never going to respect you. That's literally like one of the most common things you'll hear there.
It's interesting. I'll do a video on this on how that actually screws with a woman's brain
Hmm.
if she does that.
Well, it does, but it gives the man control.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like do the ends justify the means sort of thing? And in a lot of the red pill stuff, they don't really care as much about the means, or they're misguided into thinking that the very, very insecure, not self-aware women are all that there are there.
Yeah.
That there are no secure, self-confident women.
Or
By the
all
way,
crazy.
yeah, or by the way, the ones that are secure, the ones that are self-confident, they already see those men and they're like,
They don't. They're not
they don't even
remotely
respond. They're like,
attracted.
what is wrong with this person? Yeah. Which is why a lot of the girls that I attracted with some of that methodology were not healthy, secure, confident women that
Yeah.
had their own stuff going.
Yeah.
Right?
I was like, it's so funny how like the hyper independent women who are talking about like six pack and
Six figures, six pack.
What was the other one? 6 feet.
6 feet. Do you know what actual like percentage of men even make six figures? I forget the exact number, but it's already like a percent or a few
Yeah.
percent or something like that. Then they have a six pack and they're 6 feet. Like that's almost
It's a very
zero.
small percentage of men.
But everybody wants that, so the scales economically are not tipped in your
Well, again,
favor.
that goes back to women not knowing what actually matters in a relationship
and
either, and
men also
not
knowing
know
what matters
No.
because men think, okay, she's attractive, the sex is going to be great,
She's hot,
it's good, that's going to be a good relationship. If that's all that your relationship is about, I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. Yeah.
What are a couple of the other ways that these men will manipulate women? Because I got ladies out here who are dating. Okay,
Yeah.
I need them to know.
Yeah, trying to sleep with you really fast. I mean, that's typically a red flag, right? Because it probably doesn't mean that he actually likes you for you. He doesn't know you if it's the first or the second or the third date. I'm not saying never
Right.
have sex on the second or third or whatever date. That's not the point. But if you feel the pressure to do that really early on, it's not really a good sign.
Right.
That's one way for sure. Another way is if you start to get really emotionally involved because of the sort of energetic dynamic, especially if it reminds you of maybe an insecure experience that you had with your father or even with your mother, you feel that pattern being repeated, that's a huge red flag. And if you feel it being repeated very early on, there's a non-zero chance that he's picking up on your patterns and he's using those to be able to influence you in a way that's not good for you.
What is negging? I heard you try to explain negging to me one time, and unhealthy men will do that to women to try and get them to, I don't know, sleep with them, I guess. What is negging?
Yeah, so that's basically, negging is basically when you give a woman a backhanded compliment that's also an insult, because what you're doing is you're sort of preying on those insecurities to say, oh, this is really nice, but this other thing. Because what that's doing is essentially lowering her self-esteem so that you can come in and you're like the source of any additional self-esteem that she does have. It's a very like bad thing to do psychologically to anyone. But essentially, here's an example. Oh my God, Amanda, I really love your nails. Are those real? Where like they're obviously not real. You see what I did there?
Mine are real, but
Yours are, yeah. But I'm saying if they weren't.
Yeah, if they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. And that is supposed to work how? Like, what's the logic behind
The
that?
logic, and it does work on insecure women. The reason it works is because, there's a few reasons. Number one, you're taking them on an emotional roller coaster. So a lot of the time, what these red pill guys will do is they're trying to spike their emotions. Now you reminded me of a few other things that I'll mention about some of these tips and tricks that they get passed down to them. But with negging, you're taking them on an emotional roller coaster. So the idea is you're always like boosting their emotions. You're getting them in a heightened emotional state. So what you're doing is you're taking them on an emotional roller coaster, bringing them up. Then, oh, by the way, okay, you're bringing them down. You're creating like this sort of false sense of hope
Almost like
in
an
a way.
emotional addiction.
Yeah, I think if I had to analyze it, because I never really analyzed it that deeply psychologically, because it was just like, oh, okay, this is interesting. We're learning a thing at this seminar from this coach or whatever, and I thought that's just how you talk to women. That's just how you communicate with women because I didn't know any better. But yeah, if you really look at it from a psychological perspective,
No, 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 don't hurt.
Mia,
No,
leave your sister
no,
alone.
no.
Daisy, the children are here joining us on
They
camera.
are wherever we are.
Yeah, they love us. They love to make little cameos.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, they use these things to sort of give them an emotional roller coaster and then to also essentially be the source of any of those positive emotions while taking them down a notch psychologically and playing on their insecurities. Another thing, and this isn't called this anymore, I don't think, but you have things like DHV where you're demonstrating higher value, which like makes sense. You want to present yourself in a good light,
Right.
yes. But not only is it toxic because it's done in a contrived way where you're doing it to make her think that you're someone that you're not. A lot of men will actually go and lie about those things. Like there's literal manuals where you memorize a 6-hour routine stack. I'm not making this up.
I'm sure you're not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You memorize this like 6-hour routine stack where you're telling them other people's stories about their successes. Like, oh yeah, when I had my stripper ex-girlfriend in Monaco and blah blah blah, and then this happened, and then I got into this fight, and then this. You're like creating these sort of emotional triggers that play into evolutionary psychology, which do work.
Right.
That's the thing. It's not like this stuff doesn't work. It does. And then men think that that's the way that they need to do it because they've had success getting into relationships, physical or otherwise, short term or long term. But most of them don't get far enough that they actually have a sustainable relationship, or their relationships will evaporate very quickly, or maybe they will be dating that woman that they attracted with all these manipulations and techniques and whatever, and that they will be dating her for a few years or get married to her. But then what is that relationship based on? Lies, insecurity, manipulation, trauma, uh, insecure attachment styles. It's
Yeah.
not healthy.
Yeah, it's the same thing as women who are taught to be gold diggers, where it's like a lot of manipulation, and I know a lot of the provider man content gets inflated with the gold digger stuff. It's not, they're different. But when you go to the other extreme of how women are taught to manipulate men, because I tell people this all the time, there's shitty manipulative people all over the
Of
world,
course. On both
right?
sides,
On
yeah.
both sides, men and women. It's a smaller percentage than most people think. I think it's just like 10%,
Hmm.
is what I heard, actually have some sort of personality disorder. Not everybody's a narcissist, right? Because I know that likes to get thrown around a lot. It's maybe 10% of the population that does actually have some sort of like personality disorder or something like that, from what we know. But the other thing is that, I try and tell people this all the time. Most people are just confused,
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
that's exactly it. I mean, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I didn't think I was being hurtful to women, and I did my best not to be.
Yeah,
But you either do end up hurting them, or best case scenario, you don't. But you're attracting a person that's not healthy, that's toxic, that's insecure. That's not going to be good for you.
if
You're
there,
you're not respecting your own value because you're going out and intentionally or otherwise attracting these women into your life and having relationships with them when they're not right in their own mind
right.
and in their own self.
If there's a man watching this right now, I doubt a red pill guy got this far into it. But if there is a man watching this right now, because we do have men
I'm
who
sure they
watch
did.
this
I'm sure they're
channel,
going to be in the comments.
yeah, what would you say to a man who is watching this and hearing you say that, and he's starting to wake up to the fact of like, oh, wait a second, there's something else out here. Maybe I've been lied to
Hmm.
about the nature of women, or maybe I've been lied to about how relationships work. And oh, actually, I have been feeling really icky. They
Yeah.
wouldn't use the word icky, but I've been feeling like something's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that all relationship coaching or even all dating coaching or dating coaches are bad. I don't think that that's the case at all. It's picking and choosing. And this is something I, this is something I'm even talking about here because I feel called to like share my own story and my own message a little bit, because I think that even if I don't end up turning it into some sort of business at some point, I know that I'm helping people, and that's like enough for me. So there are good coaches out there, just like there are good business coaches, just like there are good life coaches, but they're not all created equal. And whenever you start to hear content that goes against common sense, although there's a lot of weird things that society today calls common sense that is not, or that they're touting as the correct thing that's not. So you have to be discerning. And the way that you be discerning, by the way, is to ground yourself spiritually and emotionally. I'm
Correct.
not saying go and join the church, right? But you want to meditate. You want to understand what's authentic to you and what isn't, and use your body to determine, what is and isn't. You see how you're feeling. If you're going up to that nightclub and you're, to a woman there and you're spouting lines that aren't even you, and you're making things up, and you're acting in a way. Let's say that you're really introverted and you don't like going to clubs, but you're a red pill coach or trainer or somebody on the internet, some YouTube video you're watching says you gotta go out and do night game. You gotta practice. You gotta go and talk to 100 women, at a nightclub. Granted, there's a time and place for that. Like if you're really insecure, you're shy, you want to move a little bit more towards being extroverted. It's not a bad idea to go out to a bar with your friends
Hmm.
and meet people and be social. But there are also a lot of other better ways to do that, arguably.
Right.
But if you find yourself like regularly in an environment like that, that's not who you are, that's not authentic, where you're meeting people that aren't the kinds of people you just want to be around at all, stop doing that. That's why I left Vegas. I'm like, I don't want to be in Las Vegas anymore, just going out. And I didn't even get drunk. I mean, I would go out pretty much sober. I mean, sometimes we'd have a drink or two before we went to the club just to kind of get in the mood. But I wasn't buying drinks at the nightclub. We weren't, even when I had friends that had tables and bottle service and whatever. I mean, we weren't really drinking, maybe a little bit, but I wasn't going out there because I wanted to get drunk, because I wanted to party. I was going there because I thought it's how I would meet quality women. And I'm not saying that quality women aren't in nightclubs, but
The
most of
chances.
them, the chances, yeah, exactly. So that's the main thing, really, is when you start to feel like whatever you're doing, whatever you're saying, whoever you're being is inauthentic. It feels icky in your body. It feels icky in yourself. When you hear somebody say that, even if you try it and it works, it doesn't mean that it's authentic to you. What I had to do a lot of, because I was coming from a place where I was a maybe more of a nice guy, even though I wasn't a nice guy in the manipulative sense. I was a nice guy in that I was introverted. I'd never really been exposed too much to women or talking to women. I didn't have a father figure to show me the ropes, so to speak. I was coming from that place on one side of the pendulum, and then I started looking at the pickup stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, this is on the totally opposite side. Maybe there's something here that I need to learn, and there was, and I did learn a few good things. I'm not throwing it all away, uh, but overall, a lot of it was coming from a very unauthentic place. And to be honest, it's hard to know who to trust and who to listen to. It's not always, it's not always black and white,
Right.
right?
Right. All right, let's get back to the ladies. That was the message for the men. This is something that comes up in the comment section quite a lot, or in the emails. A woman has been with a man for many, many years. There is no ring in sight. She really wants a ring. And I try to tell the women, hey, it doesn't take men that long to figure out whether they want to marry someone.
If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it.
Yeah. So, in your experience, and that's what I've heard from several men, including you, that it didn't take that long to figure it out. What message do you have for the women who are in that situation?
Where they're with a man and they've been dating him for years,
And they
and
want
it's
to get
not,
married, it's just not happening. I have my theories as to why that
yeah.
happens. My theory as to why that happens, usually the woman's a bit more insecure.
Hmm.
So she's trying, to play it cool, right? She's not trying to be too much or too demanding, but basically in trying to play it cool, she did not at some point in the beginning say, hey, I'm looking for marriage and
Yeah,
kids.
again, I wouldn't say that it's that men are necessarily being sinister if they've been dating you for months or years and they're not marrying you. They might just be really insecure, or they might be afraid. That's something that happens, is that they don't, like in my case, right? I grew up in a childhood where there were a lot of things that my mom did and that with my dad that I wouldn't say are very, very healthy things, and the relationship ended badly, and it was not a good example
It
of
was
a
painful.
healthy
Yeah.
marriage, and it was painful, and maybe men are dealing with that. But that's why you want to screen for healthy men to begin with, and men that actually are secure in themselves, that have done work, whether it's therapy, whether it's personal development, not men that are broken, that are with you because they're trying to fulfill some unmet need that they're not meeting, like within themselves, right? You want to
Yeah.
bring 100 and 100, not 50-50.
I also warn women that with the psychology of men, if you give him everything, he will he will start seeing you as a convenience.
Yeah.
You're
You
the
you didn't cook for me before we got married.
hell no, I did not. I'm
You told me you didn't know how to cook. And now I understand why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny story, right? I do know how to cook, but when we were not married yet, I did not tell him that I knew how to cook. Right. In fact, I may have embellished how much I do not know.
A lot, yeah. And then you made me this pad thai that was like from a Thai restaurant, basically. And I'm like, wait, what? How? But you don't know how to. You can barely fry an egg, Amanda. How did you? And I was really confused. I thought you just had a screw loose or something, because I just figured like maybe you know how to cook this one very intricate foreign recipe, but then you don't know how to fry a chicken breast, and it was just really. And I was like, I was trying to put two and two together, and I was very confused. It's like, what's wrong? What's going on here?
Yeah, well, I knew
Yeah.
that about male psychology, right? Which is if you start giving a man everything and you become too convenient,
Mm-hmm.
even after marriage, but that's another conversation, he will not put a ring on it.
Yeah.
He will not, right? But back to the thing, like how long before you knew? Because you had told me even before we had started dating, you had an inkling.
I knew you were a serious person very early on, in fact, and I didn't even know that you liked me until probably after I was like, wow, would I actually consider being with this girl? I'm like, I really like her. And it wasn't just like this emotional thing. I mean, we didn't even see each other, we meet in person until basically months after we started dating because we were living in different countries.
Yeah.
But I already had an inkling because of just who you were and how we had connected, and the fact that we're both running our businesses, we were both successful in our own right. I was helping you with your business just kind of as a colleague, as a friend, and you were helping me a lot with mine. And I'm like, I already started to see, oh wow, there's something happening here. We're actually like contributing to each other's lives, and there's something bigger here, and also something that I hadn't really felt in any other relationship that I'd been in. It's very different.
Yeah, if you want to learn more about what he felt, and we'll get into it a little bit momentarily, check out the Feminine Magnetism Mastery program because what you were feeling was feminine energy. Because like maybe a few months before meeting you, was when I really started getting into that and really started understanding it. Um, One of the things that you have said to me, which is a part of what I call the feminine stages,
Hmm.
once a woman gets to what I call the Empress stage, she becomes rare. And when a woman becomes rare in a man's eyes, he's going to swoop her up quick, which is pretty much what happened with you,
Yeah, and
especially if he has experience dating
100%.
other women. So
And I
in
had experience dating a lot of other women.
Yeah. So in your eyes, what is it that makes a woman uh rare? Because I've heard that from other men before where they're like, "Oh, I knew it was her because I had dated a lot of other women before and I knew that she was different, she was rare, there was something different about her." And I've noticed that that's when men commit quick is when
Yeah.
they think that you are rare.
The main thing was just that you actually were able to create your own success in the world, and that you knew what you were talking about. And actually it's beyond that. What really stood out for me was, I think, exactly what you're pointing your finger on now. So I know you talk a lot about this in your feminine magnetism mastery course, but it's that energetic thing. And I didn't know if it was just sort of you being into spirituality or you being into the energetic work in general, because you were also into that, and the way that you talked about even sales and actually coached me in some ways on sales, and around how to think about a few problems I was having at a very high level in business that I'd never heard from anybody else. It wasn't just the pragmatic parts of it. It wasn't just the strategy of it. it was where you were coming from energetically. And it wasn't until actually recently when you started getting into this work, and I hear you recording all your courses and stuff all the time because we share an office, where I'm like, oh, so that was it. But it was the energy that you brought to it, that feminine energy that you brought, that was a totally different perspective than I would have heard from any of my male colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
because we were just sort of business friends at the beginning, or anything remotely similar to any of the energy that I experienced or the contribution that I experienced from even women that I had been dating for years. It just totally stood out. And so there's like this sort of, it was a spark, because I did feel that chemistry with you very, very early on. I mean, even the first time meeting, I was like, what? Okay, there's something here, right? And it was also what you were bringing to the table. By the way, men, never ask a woman, what are you bringing to the table? Because if you don't know what she's bringing to the table, by the time you're sitting down in front of her, I mean, you have a problem there. You never
Mm-hmm.
want to ask ask that. But you were bringing a lot of value already there. And it wasn't just anything tangible, it was all the intangible stuff.
What does it feel like from your perspective? Because I can explain it to women,
Hmm.
right? And I'm like, hey, here's the structure. Like one of the some of the feedback that we got, you were helping one of the students with a tech issue. Thank you.
Hmm.
I would be lost without you on all the tech things. But one of the some of the feedback that she came brought to us about the Feminine Magnetism Mastery Program was the fact that it was very well structured.
Yep.
So I can take on that masculine teacher role for the women here and kind of explain it to them in a way that makes sense for the women, for their brains, especially women from Western culture where they've been told intellect and your brain. And, I got physicians, engineers. Like, I need to talk to them in a certain way for them to get it. I
Yeah,
get
and a
it.
lot of the women you are attracting are in accounting, they're in HR, tech, like all across the
I need to
board.
make it make sense,
Hmm.
right? But
Yeah.
what does it feel like from a man's perspective? And I know that maybe it's not going to be the easiest thing to describe because it is a lot more intangible, but try your best.
Yeah, what it looks like is that I had a lot of the tactics and a lot of the hard skills, and I couldn't see my experience through the perspective of the soft skills and the people and the connections. We had one call about sales where you had given me some feedback after you listened to a recording of one of my calls. That ended up being like a $15,000 or $20,000 sale, and then another two or three where I applied the same thing, like, hey, just follow up more and just say this because it's pretty obvious he needs what you're selling.
This was after he asked me for help, by the way, which is very important
Yeah.
for women to understand. Don't go to your man and start coaching him. And we were friends at this point, we weren't dating yet. We were colleagues, but I was still applying the same principle, which
Hmm.
is unless you asked me, I didn't say anything. And
Yeah.
that's very important for women to understand because a lot of women will go into relationships or with their husbands and they'll start like nitpicking or yelling at him or criticizing him or trying to like find a solution to a problem like immediately, and then that's pretty much a turnoff to men. Um,
Yet they complain when men do it,
Yet they complain when men
and they
do
call
it,
that mansplaining.
and they call it mansplaining, but that's what men are supposed to do. Is they're supposed to guide, teach, tutor,
Yeah.
mentor. It's one of the ways in which they protect. It's one of the ways in which they give. And I can do other videos on that. Let me know in the comments if you would like to understand the psychology behind all of that. But I even still to this day, unless you ask me for my opinion or my advice or my counsel, I don't typically
Yeah.
interject it because men typically see that as disrespectful.
Hmm.
Like, or like you don't trust him, right? So I just wanted to make that clear in case there was some confusion, because I know when it comes to this feminine energy stuff of like what to say when and the energy gets very, very confusing for people. So I just wanted to pinpoint that in there. You had asked me
Yeah,
uh,
that's
for help.
definitely helpful. I had, and it was a different kind of energy that you brought, and it solved a lot of my problems. And you helped me make. And again, this wasn't like you bringing me a client or you bringing me money or you giving me money or you buying, even paying for my service or anything like that. Like, you literally, just in a few minutes of talking through something and understanding the situation better than I did from that energetic perspective, from that feminine energy perspective, you were able to put the just help me, like Da Vinci, right? Help me put those pieces together that were already there, because I already had the skills. I knew how to deliver on the project.
You know
I
how to
already
make
had the
money.
connection. I knew
Yeah.
how to make money. I knew how to close deals, but there were a few things. Landed an extra $30,000 in my lap in like 3 weeks.
Yeah. That'll definitely get a man's attention.
Yeah.
It was not
But it was
my,
the way you
yeah.
did it. It was the fact that I felt like, wow, you're contributing and I have someone here that's really on my level
Mm.
versus feeling like I always have to pull everybody in my life, including the women I'm dating, up.
Mm.
That was a big part of it.
Can you explain that for the women who might be confused about that? Like feeling like you're pulling them up. I feel like a lot of them are in a situation where they feel like they're pulling the men up when they're dating, but
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So here's the difference between a man wanting to just be with a woman that could split the bills or pay half of the bills versus wanting to be with a woman who contributes. Because when you're like, hey, I wanna date a woman, but she better pay half the bills, you're almost asking for like a roommate or a platonic friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates a dynamic that to the woman is not very attractive at all. Versus when you're coming at it from the perspective of I want someone who's able to contribute. It's not always going to be 50-50, but she's a lot of the time contributing things that you don't see right away. She's contributing a lot of value in other ways, like you did with me, where it's not like I looked at that and I'm like, oh, you can make a lot of money. So if I have a relationship with you, I know you're going to be able to pay half the rent. It was this, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And more importantly, I don't feel like I'm going to have to pull you up. Like you're carrying your own weight, but it doesn't have to look like what society or feminism might say
It's
that it
not
has to
pulling the
look like.
same weight that a man pulls.
It might be more, it might be
Yeah.
less, but it's in a different way.
It's a different kind
It's a
of weight.
different type, it's a different style.
Yeah.
It's the nuance. And that's the thing that a lot of people miss, especially a lot of these coaches, whether it's for men, for women, red pill, blue pill, whatever, it's like they miss the nuance.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of nuance in human communication. There's a lot of nuance in human dynamics.
Mm-hmm. Why should women not feel guilty when men want to give to them? So there's an interesting paradox I've noticed in the comment section, which is that women want provider men. They want men who will pay the bills. A lot of them are getting called gold diggers by men in the West if they say that, but you explain why men have gotten to this place.
Yep.
Don't date those men, just understand how they got there and what's going on. So interesting paradox is they say they want provider men, but then when a man provides,
They don't want to receive.
they don't want to receive either money, or a lot of women also don't.
Or they feel guilty receiving.
They feel
That's
guilty.
common. Yeah.
Or they get mad, right? Because, for example, a man giving them advice pisses them off.
But that's one of the ways that a man does provide. That is provision.
Yeah.
Why would you not want someone to help you with the situation you're in? Now you have to actually listen too. The challenge is when men don't listen and a woman talks about her day and they immediately jump to solve the problem, which if you're talking to a man makes sense. Oh yeah, sure, bud. Like I know exactly how to do this. Let me show you. You don't want to necessarily do that with a woman in the same way, and that's maybe one of the origins
Of that conflict.
and of what they call mansplaining,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then, as with everything, society takes it too far. The pendulum swings too far, and then anytime a man tries to give you advice, it's mansplaining and it's bad and it's assault or something. I don't know.
You touched on an important point, which is feeling guilty for it, and you also said, why wouldn't you want somebody else helping you solve your problems? I can tell you why. Because it makes you weak.
Yeah.
Or that's what they've been told. It makes you weak, or
I could understand how they see that.
Or you are now obliged that if he wants sex with you, you have to give him sex. Like, oh, you took me out to dinner.
That's exactly the thing there. That's the incongruence. The fact that a man is giving you something does not mean that you owe him anything. And that's part of what's wrong with both the feminism movement and the trainings on how to be a gold digger and how to use men and all these other things, and what's also wrong with the red pill, because the red pill teaches spend and invest as little as you possibly can in a woman and try to get sex as quickly as possible.
Which
but then the other stuff teaches the opposite.
Ironically, the way that men fall in love with women is by investing in them.
Yeah.
Whether it's financially or giving them advice or mentoring them or molding them or protecting them, that is actually how men fall in love, is by investing in a woman. But if a woman is unable to receive that,
Then it just blocks
then it
the
just
energy at the door.
blocks the energy of being able to fall in love with her. And that's one of the things that makes a woman rare, because I've gotten that comment from women all over the world, like across the board, not even just the West. I've gotten that from Asian women
Hmm.
in the comments as well, right? And I was like, oh, so this receiving piece is like a worldwide issue when it comes to women, and women
Yeah.
not understanding that when a man gives to you and invests in you, that's what makes him fall in love. Or it's one of the things that makes him fall in love. It means he cares about you. If a man's not trying to give to you, he does not care.
Yeah, if he's just like kicking back and doing his thing and he doesn't notice when you have a challenge, when you have a problem, and at least offer a solution, right, in the right timing and in the right way. But if he never do it, if he never does any of that, and you just sort of feel like you have a roommate and you're on your own and your man isn't proactively trying to make your life better, that to me is not a marriage. That's not a relationship. That's you being roomies or friends with benefits with someone. And the sex probably isn't even that great either because there's
Or
no
not there.
polarity. Or
Or
not there, yeah.
yeah, or not there.
There's no polarity in that.
What are some of the things, final question, right? What are some of the things that are just a man trying to be useful and helpful, because that's what men are always trying to do, that women may accidentally perceive as he's problematic? I should be afraid of this.
One example, and I did this a lot with you as you did with me, but like when a man would try to, for example, help you with a business problem you're having. I did that with you in the beginning because I saw that you needed my help, and vice versa. I mean, it was a really good exchange of value. You helped me with some of that energetic stuff and the sales, and I helped you with a lot of your tech, and I enjoyed doing it. And this is part of what actually got me attracted to you in the beginning because I was investing and because you were receiving so well. Now that I kind of think back, I was like, I'm helping you, and a lot of women would have been like, okay, well, let me, how much do I owe you? Or, and that's not to say you just keep on taking from a man in using him. There's a big difference, and it's subtle. But you were allowing me to give to you. You would call me. You'd have a problem. Okay, great. I and yeah, I mean, I was probably also attracted to you already at that point, and I enjoyed. This is maybe I didn't even tell you this before, but I really enjoyed just getting to spend time with you. I was like,
Aw.
oh, okay, we're hanging out on Zoom, and I'm helping you solve this tech stuff, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like I'm hanging out with Amanda. Like, it was fun for me. So I enjoyed just spending time with you, period, because you were just a cool person to spend time with. But the fact that I was giving and you were receiving, like that was really valuable to me. That was fulfilling because you received so gracefully, and not a lot of other people would. You just allowed me to like kind of pour into you. So the mistake that a lot of women would make at that level is saying, "Oh no, like that's too much. She's gonna want something from me," but I didn't want anything from you. I wasn't attached to getting something back or anything like that. I just very much enjoyed spending time with you and sharing all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the comments that I get sometimes, because you were a part of my masculine energy experiment that I've talked about on this
Was
channel.
I?
Well, I mean, every man in my life was a part of the
Yeah.
masculine energy experiment, and then I met you within 4 months. And you also knew that there were other men who were hitting on me.
Yeah, I think you might have played that up a little bit.
But you knew I had men all around me, whether it was the events that I was going
Yeah.
to, or you knew I'd been hit on in a common group that we were in. Like, you knew. But that's because all the men around me were a part of my masculine energy experiment, where I said I have to get really good at receiving from men,
Hmm.
whether it's solving a problem or they want to gift me something, take me out to a dinner. And I had a lot of male colleagues that, took me out to dinner or helped me to solve problems. And I would learn to receive that very gracefully. And when I tell women to do this, the pushback that I'll get sometimes is, what if I don't like him?
I mean, what does that even mean? That she's obliged to sleep with him just because she lets him open the door for her? That's crazy.
Or that men only give when they want something.
I think that is true in a lot of ways for unhealthy men. And part of the problem is that people on both sides, like both men and women, will conflate the things that are true for a healthy person emotionally, mentally, whatever, of the opposite sex versus an unhealthy person. and they'll say that, hey, if I allow myself to receive, I'm going to attract predators, and I'm going to attract people that just want to give so that they can receive something. And to a certain extent that might be true. But what you're also doing there is you're completely blocking yourself from being able to have a relationship with healthy men.
Mm,
And that's not a winning game. You're not playing the game to win then. You're playing it not to lose.
right.
So the way that you play that game is you have to balance, how do I protect myself emotionally, energetically, spiritually, everything else, and have proper boundaries with, how do I do the things that will allow me to actually be vulnerable and receive from the right man?
And having that discernment and that filter, which in
Yeah.
terms of boundaries, we have a whole module on boundaries on the High Value Woman transformation program. So we got to start wrapping this up. Thank you so much for coming on and allowing me to ask you these questions that have been coming in on the channel,
Oh, my pleasure.
and sharing your
It was
perspective
it was my honor.
and sharing your perspective for these women. Guys, I'm serious. Like, as soon as I started showing him some of these comments, he's like, you need to interview me. Right? I want to go on there. I want to help. I
I'll
want
take one for the team.
to
Yeah.
I want to help you grow this. I want to help you get this in front of more women so they understand. So thank you so much, because I don't know, I think I mentioned it on the videos, but I don't know if they really know like just how much you've inspired uh, even me doing.
Am I your muse?
Not quite, right? I see you as more of a mentor. You're one of the most brilliant business minds
Oh,
that I know. I'll take the
thank
muse.
you.
I'll take the muse
Yeah.
title. But for you, I
That's
see,
your title. I see that.
right. I'll see it as, for you, I see as more of a mentor, because, I mean, you don't even, guys don't even know how many times I've wanted to quit this channel. How many times I was like, I don't have time between like his business and the house and
And I'm like,
everything we're
I'll
doing.
help you with the kids more, with the fur babies.
Yeah.
I'll start editing more of my own content and give you more space to focus on the things that you want to do. And
Yeah.
on the flip side, for men, it's great too, because the more women you speak to, the better the men get, because they realize that not all women are crazy and insecure and everything else. So it just moves everyone forward as a whole.
Yeah, and I'll end it on this note, which is women need to get really good at taking leadership from men. And I'll give a very concrete example. A lot of y'all found this channel because of the first video I did about Aubrey Marcus. You made me do that video.
I
Not
guess I
made
did.
me,
I
like,
guess I did. Yeah.
not made me, right? But you were like, you have to go film this now when that broke out. I was like, are
Yeah.
you crazy? We're in the middle of moving. We're in the middle of, and then I remember and I said, he's right. He has a brilliant business mind. If he's saying this, it's because he knows what he's talking about. And in between packing up the whole house that we had in the city and moving out to the country and all the craziness we had going on with a move in a country that we are not from, by the way, to add a little bit more complexity to the situation, I took your leadership. I followed your advice. Boom, almost 10,000 views on that video, which is how a lot of people found me. Or even moving to Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
following your leadership, where you were like, hey, things are getting crazy in the United States and other parts of the Western world. uh, I mean, we weren't even married yet, and you were making sure that I had my residency. You helped me through that whole process, that the immigration was good, because
Yeah.
you were like, even if I think, I mean, we had already had a talk about commitment and marriage and where things were going before I showed up. But it was clear to me that even if we did not work out, you wanted to make sure that I was good.
Yeah. And I did.
And
And
you
I
did.
still do.
And still do. You still do. Yeah, you do. I'm very grateful for you. Thank you.
Grateful for you too.
All right, let them know where they can find you, because you have your own YouTube with really interesting stuff going on.
Absolutely. You can check out all the information there in the show notes, and we'll link all that below, at Entrepreneur Expat on YouTube and Entrepreneur Expat Official on Instagram. And then we're working on maybe putting together some products for men as well. So if there's any men watching this, if we do that by the time this comes out, we'll be sure to link it below.
Have the women inspired you to maybe
Yeah,
go talk to the men?
now I'm like, maybe I need to start diving into this a little bit more, because it's time to see society and people getting better and making love better and changing this all for the better. So
Well, everyone, thank you so much for giving us your time today. It was an honor. We'll have Justin back every once in a while if I can pull him away from his busy schedule to come talk to you guys. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It'll help us get it in front of more women and men, even if they want to fight us in the comments. The red pill guys, we welcome it. Please fight.
Yep. Let's just
Um,
boost our engagement. It's
Yes,
okay. We don't
engagement
mind.
boosters, we love you. Even if you disagree, please fight in the comments. We love it. And make sure to share this out with a girlfriend or somebody who may need it. Make sure to follow Justin over at Entrepreneur Expat if you're interested in the international lifestyle, global diversification, online business, all those kinds of things. Um, and all our programs that are available, I mentioned a few throughout this interview that we just did. You can find them in the description below. And we now also have QR codes that show up on the video, thanks to my love, who was like, you need to figure out QR codes. Help,
Hmm.
like, let me help you figure out the QR codes because that'll make things easier for everyone. Thank you, everyone, so much. And we will catch you on the next one.